of all of this, the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps. Mr Shapps, good to have you on the programme this morning.
Morning.
A huge amount for us to get through. So let us start perhaps with the scenes that we've just been discussing in and around the port of Dover. What measures is the government putting in place, given the already chaotic scenes that we're seeing in Kent?
Yeah, well, immediately, as soon as the French said, perhaps slightly surprisingly, that they would stop hauliers rather than just passengers, we were in touch with a group that's known as the Kent Resilience Forum. They're well used to planning for exactly these kind of circumstances. We'll be opening up Manston as a lorry park today and providing welfare for some of those drivers as well, whilst very close contact with the French over what will happen next.
In terms of capacity, how close are we to reaching the uppermost level of the spaces for hauliers of this type?
A long way away at the moment, because, of course, as soon as this happened yesterday, messages were sent out through people like the Road Haulage Association, Logistics UK, to say to hauliers, don't travel to Kent, which is, of course, the key message. Hauliers and everybody else, the border is closed at the moment, so you won't be able to travel across that way. It's probably also worthwhile me just setting out the context. The Kent, Dover to Calais, the Eurotunnel, what we call the short straits, is probably about 20% of goods going to and from in and out of the country, but it's not the mainstay. Most goods actually come in and out by unaccompanied containers, and those will continue to flow. We would have expected perhaps 6,000 lorries just under in Kent today. They won't be able to cross, but the other crossings remain open.
So what then, if any, are the concerns about shortages, particularly as regards food and medicines?
Well, we obviously don't want these links to be closed for too long, but it's not unusual for them to be closed and disruptive. There have been periods of some weeks with strikes in the past. For example, I remember the My Ferries strike some years back. There have been other pieces of industrial action quite frequently, actually, in Calais. Most people wouldn't have noticed those things happening at all. So in the short term, it's not a specific problem. But of course, the key is to get it resolved. All the other countries that you've mentioned who've said, look, we're concerned about this new, very virulent variant of the coronavirus, have said, look, we won't have people travelling to us. And in fairness, we've said people shouldn't travel anyway at the moment. The difference is that the French have gone slightly further and said that hauliers shouldn't cross either, whereas all the other countries have allowed hauliers. Now, I'm in touch with my opposite number in France, and we'll make sure we're doing everything we can to get that restarted. And in fact, they've said to us they want to restart the hauliers as quickly as possible.
So are you anticipating that ban on hauliers crossing the Channel lasting any longer than the 48 hours that the French have suggested?
Well, I very much hope not. As I spoke to my opposite number, Jean-Baptiste de Baget, last night, we're speaking again later this morning. It's probably worth mentioning that the majority, as shown in your film there, the majority of hauliers are actually European hauliers. And so that indicates something which is true, which is that they are exporting more than we are to them. So in a sense, they'll back up on their side, and it will be inconvenient to them as well. So there's plenty of incentive always round to get this resolved. And that's what we'll be trying to do with the French, who, as I say, have gone a step or two further than other countries, quite rightly wanting to be, I think, precautionary about their approach because of the new very virulent strand of coronavirus. But the reality is that it is probably elsewhere already. We know it is elsewhere already. We actually happen to know about this strand very well because we do a very large amount of the genome sequencing for coronavirus. I think we've done nearly half of the total sequencing in the world. So we're seeing these variants move and we're tracking it quite quickly. But I think the reality is it will already be in other places, and it's already been found in several other European countries, for example.
Transport Secretary, just in terms of perishable goods domestically, there must be thousands of tons of perishables either at Dover or on their way to Dover or heading back home. And we've heard reports of truckloads full of Scottish langoustines on their way to the continent, which will spoil as a result of all of this. Will there be any financial assistance for businesses caught up?
Yes, I should say in the sort of haulier marketplace, hauliers are quite used to anticipating disruption. That's why actually in your film there you saw quite a lot of them were pretty well prepared. I saw some people sort of opening up the sort of supplies that they've got with them, and we'll make sure that we take care of those who are parked along the motorway in Operation Stack at the moment. So it's not unusual, and quite a lot of this is anticipated into the system, just as with all global transit. There's always the chance of disruption in all its different forms. So the system will pretty much take care of itself as far as those things are concerned. Goods tend to be insured where they're perishable. But as I say, the absolute key is to get this resolved as soon as possible. I'll be speaking again to my opposite number, Jean-Baptiste, later this morning. There's a meeting taking place actually right now in Europe about it in order to coordinate approaches. And it's not really in anybody's particular interest to not have hauliers be able to cross, and not least because they are mostly European hauliers, and then the goods are mostly theirs. So they won't want them perishing any more than we would want the border closed.
Of course, another perishable on all of our minds at the moment is the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine. I understand that we've got stocks to last us till January. We know that there were contingency plans drawn up, an air corridor, perhaps a ferry being used. Are we at the point of triggering those contingency measures to ensure the supply of the vaccine?
No, there's no issue there at all. Most of the vaccine doesn't come via what's called RoRo, roll-on, roll-off, which is what we're talking about here. In other words, it's not usually accompanied by a driver, by a haulier. It comes on those containers. And just to put this into context, there are about 6,000 vehicles we'd expect just under in Dover today. Probably, I would say 4,000 would have gone across from Dover, just under 2,000 on the Eurotunnel. But there's probably something like 32,000 units that would have been the daily total. So the vast majority, including virtually all the vaccine, actually comes by container. And as you say, there are good supplies in the meantime. So this won't have an impact on the vaccination program. And as I say, we get this kind of disruption, a surprising amount, bad weather, strikes, over in Calais. We've seen disruption many times before. Most consumers just won't notice that at all in the short term. It's obviously important that we get this resolved with the French, and that's what we'll be working to do today.
Minister, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but from what you're saying, it appears that consumers should not be expecting to see shortages of goods in the supermarket. Is that correct?
Well, the supply chain's pretty robust in as much as, say, you get variations in supply all the time. For the most part, people won't notice it. What we need to do is make sure that the short-term issue with hauliers specifically is resolved. But as I've explained, it's not the majority of the market. It's actually a significant minority of the market that happens to come across this particular crossing. And we've got contingencies in place for certainly what we call the Category 1 goods, like medicines and any emergency products. So from that point of view, it won't cause a problem. And actually, it's probably worth mentioning, because of all of the planning for the end of the transition period, which is the end of the month. Unusually, of course, we actually happen to be ready for a degree of disruption, and we're certainly going to see quite a degree of disruption today. But that means we've got things like the Manston lorry parking available, contingency plans to ensure hauliers are looked after, and other things that the Kent Resilience Forum and others have been working on for many, many years. So we happen to, just for other reasons unrelated to the vaccine, be in the right position to take care of things.
Still, Minister, we all know at this time of the year, we all tend to spend perhaps a little too much on food and drink. I'm wondering, given that there may well be some blips in the supply chain, whether the advice to people, this Christmas is perhaps not to buy that second ham, not to go overboard in terms of fresh fruit and vegetables that you're picking up at the supermarket.
No, as I say, I think people will just go about their businesses as usual. There's no reason to do anything else. Of course, the key thing is to resolve any disruption at Dover and Calais as quickly as possible. And I had a conversation with my opposite number, as I mentioned, where he was saying to me, look, we want to get this resolved, particularly the hauliers. I think it's fair to say that everyone's known that the passenger side of things, people just commuting or travellers are likely to be disrupted for longer. But our message has been, please don't travel anyway, and particularly not from the Tier 4 area. But really, people should be staying put everywhere throughout the country at the moment. So I think it's sort of that part of it is less spectacular, really.
In terms of this new mutated strain of COVID-19, the Health Secretary yesterday appeared to intimate that we might be living under these more severe restrictions for months to come. Is that your understanding?
Well, look, the main thing is to get this vaccine fully rolled out, and I'm pleased to say it's been accelerating. We'll have exact numbers soon, but it looks like about 500,000 people have had the first jab in their arm so far. That's 500,000 of the most vulnerable people in this country. And as long as we can keep that process accelerating, of course, we're waiting on news of other vaccines being approved. But if we do that, then that is the clear and obvious route out of these restrictions. And the trajectory is there to do it. So we're hoping that perhaps by Easter, we're all in a better position. But we've seen many times with coronavirus, it's often not an entirely predictable straight line. So I do caveat that by saying, you know, this is something that the virus is something that only individuals can help control by keeping and maintaining that distance, and particularly with this new virulent variant of the virus, which is more easily spread than the versions before.
But with the Health Secretary describing the situation in London and the South East as out of control, isn't it now time to consider putting the rest of the country into Tier 4? We know that it has been detected in every other part of England.
Well, these are decisions that we have to make and weigh up, because there are people who've clearly don't want to live under restrictions which don't apply to their area or shouldn't apply to their area in terms of the level of the virus at that time. And so we've got this principle of dealing with it on a more localized basis. And I think that's the right approach to follow. But it really depends on people following it. So if you want to make sure your area stays in one of the lower tiers and doesn't end up in Tier 4 like where I am, the only way to achieve that is to respect the fact that the virus will spread in one simple way, when we are all in contact with each other. And what we have to do is maintain that space from each other. And when we do that, it stops the virus from spreading. So obviously we'll have to react to whatever the virus does and to what the science is showing. But it is, in some senses, literally in people's hands.
Sure, and I know that you have to go, so this will, I promise, be the last question. Just in terms, though, of people getting together at Christmas, we have we've got countries all around the world telling us that people are banned from travelling to the UK, to their country. And at the same time, you can drive an hour out of London and on Christmas Day meet up with 2 other households. I mean, isn't now the time to review once again the Christmas bubble, and, of course, whether or not the rest of the country should immediately be put into Tier 4? I mean, people will be calling out for that.
But let me absolutely correct that. You cannot drive an hour out of London and go and meet those families. That's absolutely.
I was merely saying that there is a location an hour away from where I'm standing right now, where 3 households can get together.
Well, look, I'm outside London. I'm in Hertfordshire, but I can't. I'm in Tier 4. I can't meet my family, and we're gutted. I haven't seen parts of my family for the whole year, and every family will be very sad about what's happening this Christmas. But I think it's better to have those restrictions in place now and live to see another Christmas. Look, in other areas of the country, the rates are lower, so it is sensible to have a response which respects that. But, and we've seen this before, we need to make sure that we're all respecting the fact that the virus has no boundaries and it will take advantage of close human contact. So please be very sensible on Christmas Day. If you're not in a Tier 4 area, you're in one of the other areas, just one day, keep plenty of ventilation, make sure you maintain your space, and let's keep each other safe.
Minister, I apologise. I said it was going to be the last question, but breaking news has just occurred. The Danish Transport Minister has said that flights from Britain to Denmark are to be suspended for 48 hours, starting at 10 o'clock. We're going to see this again and again and again, aren't we, over the next 24 hours? Countries around the world insisting that we don't travel there.
That's absolutely right. But bear in mind that people shouldn't be travelling anyway. So that's the first thing to say. And secondly, that, as I mentioned earlier, because we do so much of the genome sequencing, I think we've done 45% of all of worldwide of all of coronavirus sequencing. We are seeing these mutations, and there have been thousands of them, by the way. This latest mutation is just happens as we've discovered to appear to be more transmittable, up to 70% more transmittable. But so we're probably seeing them faster. But many countries will already have this variant in their country. So I think this is a precautionary measure that the countries will be taking. But I'd say that they'll probably, in the end, discover that they also need to be cautious because of the situation domestically. As I say, right now, people should be staying put. They shouldn't be travelling anyway. And as a result, the really key thing is to resolve the hauliers issue, and that is specific to France only.
Well, I appreciate the early Christmas present of an extra couple of minutes of your time. Grant Shapps, thanks for joining us on the programme this morning.
Thank you.